Hello all, and welcome to a new QWave episode. So QWave is the webinar series that are made by QuIC, QuIC being the European Quantum Industry Consortium. So we are a non-profit member-based organization to push the quantum technology in the industry in Europe. And we also have a wonderful new QWave episode. Sorry. A wonderful event at this Q Expo. This is going to be 18th and 19th of May in Bilbao, and you can check the website is qexpo.org. Given that said, I'm really glad to have today Roman to talk about the investment report that they did in AMIRES, and he will give us all of the insights that they have found. So with this, let me bring Roman in. Now you can see him, and I'm going to share a little bit about his background. So Roman is a community manager for quantum technologies. He joined AMIRES in March in 2019, and he has finished his master's degrees from International Relations and European Studies and Galaxy University. I hope that I have pronounced that right, in Olomouc in 2013. After graduation, he has worked for the Investment and Business Development Agency in Czech Invest, specifically in R&D support department. This department has helped Czech companies and R&D institutions to find international partners, support high-tech investments, and deals in technology scouting. Roman has also worked for Ricardo, a multinational technical consulting company managing Horizon 2020 research projects in the automotive industry. And since 2015, he has also been a member of a number of different program boards at the Technology Agency of the Czech Republic, assessing various types of research project proposals. And in AMIRES, Roman is managing the PROMISE project, so prototypes of magnetic imaging systems for Europe, the QTest project, supporting open testing and experimentation for quantum technologies in Europe, and is also responsible for project proposal preparation. So, wow, Roman is really chief here. So, thank you, Roman, for being here. Now that we are all on the same page and we all know how amazing Roman is. I will let him present this investment report. So I'm gonna get the slides in. And again, Roman, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, David, for the introduction, first of all, and of course to QuIC for, let's say, having me here on this session. I will start with a brief introduction of the company, just for everyone to have the context, let's say, and then we'll dive into the report itself. So AMIRES is a consulting company for research and innovation projects. Okay. Our main strength is in the formation of national collaborations, and we're focusing on innovation-focused value chains. So those are really close to the industry. So we now not only support funding, mostly from Horizon Europe, that's really our core business, the R&D framework program of the European Union, but we also support the execution of those projects. And here you can see the different types of services, let's say, that we offer within those projects, from project management to business innovation, IP services, and all investments, which is the topic of the day. Looking at some stats, let's say, about the company. So our success rate, which is one of the very important metrics in a consult, is oscillating around 50% in Horizon Europe and also its predecessors. We write more than 20 proposals a year, let's say. We manage a portfolio project which have a cumulative budget of over 800 million, but we're still a fairly small company with colleagues from 13 different countries. Our network of partners across all of those projects that we run or that we have run now amounts to about 850 partners all over Europe. So currently we're running slightly above 35 projects, but of course, taking into account also the past ones, this number would be a lot higher cumulatively. We have 4 distinct programs: deep tech, health and biotech, energy and sustainability, and also quantum tech, is also the topic of today. So just to let you know about what our position in the quantum is, some of us already mentioned, for example, sorry, let me just pull out my laser pointer. For example, our involvement in QTest pilot, so the experimental pilot lines of pilot and the test beds of QTest. We're also running some research projects like Spinus, Quench, or Promise, but we're also involved in the CHIPS JU funded stability pilot lines, which are now basically being assembled and are starting. From some of the auxiliary services that we provide in these projects, there are some examples from QTest and QPilot, like an digital catalog of services, and we're also investment reports. So what I will present today is already the 5th edition of that. This is based on the work that we do in QTest and QPilot, which are, let's say, sister projects, and we're supporting both of them in project management, in dissemination, communication, exploitation activities, of open calls. We've got lots of activities there, let's say, and also this investment analysis task is with us. So QTest again is for testing and experimentation, while QPilot is an infrastructure of experimental production capacities. So with that, hopefully brief entry point into the discussion, let me get into the Quantum Tech Report 2025. So this is how it looks like, the PDF. I have transformed, let's say, this PDF in 2 slides for this session so that it's easier to view. But of course, if you scan this QR code, you can see the whole thing for yourselves and read it in full detail. This slide I will also on afterwards when we get to the Q&A part of this session. Enough time, let's say, to scan it. First off, let me start with a few notes on the methodology, because that kind of draws the boundaries of this whole work, what I'm actually about to present. So first of all, we're monitoring own activity. So we're not really factoring in stuff like internal R&D investments of big corporates. We're not looking at public markets, so stock market, publicly traded companies, or government funding, although I have a slide which is also related to public funding from Horizon Europe, but that's not the main aim. So it's really focused on the venture capital activity. Second, we're using public sources of data. I have a few examples in here: the Quantum Insider, Crunchbase, Global Quantum Intelligence, in cross-checked to see, because of course the robustness of the data is paramount to us. But of course, some companies, for example, might still be after a small investment in the stealth phase, or there's some other reasons for why information is not public. So there might be very minor cracks in the overall database, but that really affect the overall. We've been collecting the data since July 2022. So although this report is focusing on 2025 as the previous year, we're also making, let's say, some longer timelines and comparing with previous years. The deals are being converted to US dollars for comparability. And the important distinction, which we'll talk about throughout this report, is the distinction between the number of deals, so the deal count, and the amount invested. So with that methodological introduction, let's get into the data itself. So first, we have a look at the numbers of deals, not looking at the amounts invested, but just the number of deals by the startup's location. As you can see from these charts, this is for the 3 previous years, with the main focus being here on 2025. On all of the European startups actually have the largest shares of the number of deals, and the number of deals is increasing steadily every year on all continents, let's say, so globally. A slight decline in Europe's share on all of these deals, which is really slight. It's slightly below 50%. Together, we've recorded 68 private investment deals in startups globally in 2025, which is more than a quarter more than it was in 2024. Now let's look at the amounts invested. So we've talked about the number of deals, now the amount. Again, we have the 3 previous years that we can have a look at together and compare. And these charts show a slightly different story. There's no longer a European dominance. We can see dominance from North America, with the highest amounts being invested. But what we can also see in here is that the total amounts are really increasing. We have seen a 125 increase in global amounts invested year on year compared to the previous year. And here on the right hand side, you can see also some of the investment champions, let's say. So the logos here are representing the biggest deals per. Now on the next slide, we're, let's see, flipping the narrative a bit and looking at it from the perspective not of the companies, but of the investors that are investing in those companies. So looking at the lead investor origin and where they are investing, when it comes to European startups, the lead investors are from 3/4 from Europe, or slightly above 3/4. And even when looking at the global picture, we see that European lead investors are dominating or have the largest share of the. It is also worth knowing that if we were to factor in also, let's say, the non-lead investors, then European startups are really basically self-financed by European-based investors, with over 90% of deals say originating there. Now, another perspective on the data is to look at the comparison between, let's say, the 2 main sources of private capital. So European and US lead investors, or North American lead investors, and the distribution of those deals across different funding rounds. On the side, you can see the numbers of rounds. We've clustered them into 3 groups: pre-seed and seed, A and B, and then the later make it a bit more, let's say, visually clear. But on the left-hand side, you can see that the numbers of rounds are pretty comparable, 28 to 24. Also, the distribution across the different series is very much comparable. But looking at the right-hand side, that tells a different story. Because when looking at the average count per round, of course, remember that we're clustering some of these series together, but still, this tells a story. And it's now we're seeing a stark difference between the deals that are led by investors and the deals led by US investors. In both A and B rounds and C and D and E rounds, the difference is very high, favoring the US investors, where larger capital is. look at the European perspective a bit more. So if we're looking at the numbers of investments by country of origin, we see some lead countries in here. Of course, this is a snapshot of 2025. So the situation might have looked slightly differently in the previous years, but more or less this is where what we're seeing. The UK and the Netherlands leading with 6 each, and the lows in here are representing the biggest deals in those countries, with Germany and France, let's say, with a slightly lower number of deals. But we're not looking at champions only, and not only at the biggest investments that lead, we're also trying the, let's say, newly emerging champions, or with companies with high potential, which have received either pre-seed or seed investments in 2025. Generally, we can say that these companies are from all over. They are both focusing on hardware, software solutions. They are in computing, communication, sensing, and also the country distribution is fair. We can again, 3 of these are from the UK, again signaling that the activity there is high. As I already mentioned before, when our company AMIRES is focused on securing public funding for companies. Our main program that we're involved in is Horizon Europe. It's not the only one, but it's our core business. So we want also when these companies that are receiving private funding, whether they are also involved in this program. And we see that in a majority of cases, they are. So 50% of the companies that have received private funding in 2025 are also receiving public funding from Horizon Europe. The number somewhat dropped compared to the previous year, but it's still above 50%. In here, we're showing the comparison between how much they have private funding and public funding, and while in public funding from her specifically, and while of course these numbers are very difficult to compare one another, the message I wanted to, let's say, show with this is that while companies, I believe, find it important to make public and private funding well, as we can see with large proportion of them actually also receive public funding, the need for private funding when it comes to actual scale is significant. That's definitely clear in this. Have a deeper look at the 68 deals of 2025 when it comes to distribution across the different funding series. So you can see in terms of the numbers of deals on the left-hand side, we had fewer pre-seed rounds in 2024, and we see this grow by quite a bit in 2025. Signals that there's still a lot of new companies being founded. And when looking at the overall investments made in these series, I think the noteworthy things on this slide are that while the number of Series B deals hasn't really changed much from 2024, the total amount has really up a lot, from about 200 million to 1.3 billion in 2025. We're also tracking these investments and comparing the different technology domains or application areas, if you will. So on the left-hand side, you can see the pie chart comparing with sensing, communication, and we also a bit of the slice also related to enabling technology or components which may be used in different applications. What we see is that the number of deals is really rising, quantum sensing startups, although of course the vast majority is still in quantum computing. Together with communication, kind of keeping their lead in this sense, and when looking at the amount invested, they have doubled or even more than doubled when it comes to quantum computing in 2025. So right hand side, you can see the comparison between the different years and how these application domains have been rising throughout time. We are also looking at the qubit modality or the technology platform and comparing the main ones. Of course, not all quantum companies are dedicated to one platform, so this is only a subset of the overall data, mostly at the computing companies. And here we can see that the biggest share in terms of the numbers of deals are in photonics and superconducting. It has also noticed quite a big jump year on year. To the amounts invested, it's a fairly comparable story. Basically, all of these platforms have seen big deals in 2025. Over 40 million deals occurred basically in all of these, except for the semiconducting platform, which has seen in both the numbers of deals and the amount invested. Now, I will say this is of course a snapshot of the situation in 2025, 2024. This doesn't necessarily mean a lot when it comes to the majority of the platforms, or a big deal appearing next year in the semiconducting part, for example. But it shows a story. And I believe this is last slide on the analysis itself. We're also looking at what kind of product companies are developing, whether it's a hardware one, software, or combination of both. So looking at full stack companies. So when it comes to the number of deals, the biggest activity is with hardware companies. That's quite clear from this pie chart on the left hand side. But comparing the investments made, different companies, you can see that all the full stack companies have a small share. The amounts invested in those are highest. I think that's logical from the perspective of course, the capital needs of full stack companies, but perhaps also their maturity. So with that, I'm basically at the end of my presentation. I wasn't planning on making it too long, so hopefully this was just about enough. I would just like to end with a few key takeaways. When it comes to total amounts invested, we've registered 4.36 billion, which is a number which is by about 26% higher. The number of deals is higher by 26%, and the amounts invested higher by 125% wide compared to 2024. European outnumber US ones when it comes, but the US investors or deals led by US investors continue to dominate in the overall amounts invested. Quantum computing is continuing to attract most of the capital. There's the largest activity, the numbers of deals as well. But we see that, for example, quantum sensing is also growing, and compared, for example, with 2023, where we have the first, let's say, full year of data from then, we've seen quite a rapid growth. And although hardware startups are accounting for most of the deals, see that most amounts are flowing into software or full stack companies. So that would be it about the report itself. This is just a shout out to the team behind it, specifically to my colleague Katarzyna Krzykava, who's done the bulk of the. Of course, I wanted to mention Rudolf Friček as well as being the, let's say, spiritual father of this. And with that, I'll put up this this slide with the QR code in case you would be interested in more details from the report. And with that, I'm done. So thank you for your attention. Happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Roman. So let me get the Q&A here. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for the great insights. I think this has been a really good presentation, brief but straight to the point, to the key findings and takeaways. Just while you start and you rest for a little bit, we have had in the you can use the chat to ask questions right now. I will be looking at that. We have had a question about if we can get the slides. I would suggest that either you wait for the recording to be uploaded on YouTube and also to download the report in this website or the QR code that Roman has already shared. Because I think it's really worth to have the full report.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the Q&A part, I want to start as you finished with the key points. I want to start with I think that the best key point to get, that is, if you have to summarize all the report in just one key message, what fundamentally changed in the quantum investment landscape in last year?
What fundamentally changed?
Yeah.
That's a difficult question. I don't see that we've seen any really fundamental change. I think that one of the main takeaways is really high activity, high amounts invested. We've seen, I mean, I didn't mention that specifically, but big deals also in Europe, with IQM, for example, their 320 million deal, if I remember correctly. Alice and Bob was mentioned on the slides as well, over 100 million. So this I think, was very good news last year from, let's say, the European perspective. But the message that we've also seen in the previous years still kind of stays, that big capital is mostly overseas, and this is probably something that also needs to be addressed from the European perspective.
Oh, that's right. I totally agree. And following up with these kind of questions. Okay, if there is no just one key element that changed, we are increasingly seeing that the total investment or deal activity has increased. So what do you think that are the main drivers for this? And if you are seeing this like an structural momentum, so something changed and now we are investing more, or it's something more of like a short-term dynamics when companies are acquiring other companies?
I mean, I kind of struggle to answer questions back by data, strongly. So this is really what we're trying to do here: do a quantitative analysis and let's say look at the data from different interesting perspectives. Trying to put in like our perspective on things if it's not backed by the data. What I personally feel like is that we see a strong momentum globally, but also here in Europe with lots of activity, new companies being founded all the time, with higher majority of the companies that have been here already for a while, which we can then see in the amounts of private capital invested. And just as a maybe side note, we've also had some announcements of companies quite recently going to get even more capital from the stock markets. So I guess this really all signals the maturation of the technology, also the big political push for these also mostly national public investments into quantum technologies, and that we're in good times, let's say, when it comes to quantum technology investments.
Yeah, I think so. And the data backs that. We have one question in the chat that says, well, thank you for this insightful presentation. And the question is that if you include the cryostat manufacturers in the hardware category.
That's a very specific question. My guess would be yes, but of course I would need to have a look into the guts of the database to see how exactly we've categorized it.
Okay, so we have a partial yes, so we can count with the yes. Following with these different things about enabled technology, quantum sensing, from the report, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have seen that there is like a strong gap between the quantum computing and maybe sensing or enabled tech. What do you think are the main gaps or the main things to overcome in order to, like, I don't say like match it, but go at the same scale?
Well, again, this is speculation, let's say, from me, as is not something that
Yeah, but we are having
I
this
could say.
conversation because
Sure.
we want to build upon this speculative thing.
Exactly. Really, my point is just that we're kind of going away from what we can say with certainty almost, because we have the data for it, and now we're going into a bit more speculative waters. But I mean, I think that really the big differentiator in here is the promise that quantum computing globally has in terms of the added value in the long term. That's why it's attracting a lot of investments, because investors, I guess, believe that this will really be groundbreaking and bring. Whereas in sensing, I think that it's maybe more of an incremental change, not as groundbreaking. Although, of course, quantum sensing will allow us, to sense a lot with higher sensitivities, better resolution. Really do also open up new applications. But maybe it is not regarded as so groundbreaking as quantum computing is. That would be
Okay. Yeah. So okay, let's not speculate too much and let's come back to the report for a bit. So I was wondering, like, we have been talking with the team also, and one question that maybe the audience want to know is like, who is the report primarily designed for? Like the industry, the policymakers, the researcher. What is the aim of the report?
right. I don't think that we would have any like specific audience in here for everyone interested in this. With part of this activity, for example, also collecting all of the names and listing all of the investors in quantum technology. So we have a list of over 300 names of different investors. So this is, for example, something that can be very interesting for the quantum startups, to have a look at the report to see what the trends are, and then they can also come to us and we can maybe help them by pinpointing, some of the investors that are out there, because we have them also sorted out, for example, based on the technology domain or the applications. So this would definitely be one audience, but I can also mention that we've also worked together with QuIC on some position papers in the past, for example, on the Quantum Act and so on, where these numbers at times were also used to, let's say, back the argumentation with strong evidence.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, and check out our different white papers in the website of QuIC. But thank you for the for the announce. Yeah, I agree. And following up with what you said about the BCs and everything, I have a double question. So first, well, it's about barriers in general. First, well, what barriers did you identify upon like building the report? Because I think that, or I assume that getting this data it hasn't been easy for you. Like asking this kind of data usually is sensitive for some people. And once that you have completed the report, what barriers have you seen with the data? So if there is some barriers about like the quantum ecosystem itself. So it's a double question. First, building the report, and then what did you find out?
Hmm.
If there are some, maybe
Um,
it was a super smooth process, and and you didn't think that it has been difficult.
no, I think that maybe so when it comes to database itself, the main barrier is that, of course. But when it comes to the data availability, as I said at the beginning, we're really working with public sources of data. So getting to it wasn't a problem, in and of itself. And when it comes to, let's say, how we then maybe communicate the findings and what have been the barriers with that, I think grasping the difference between what I was trying to focus of deals and the amounts invested, then be different things and making sure that terminology is consistent and we have everyone on the same page when we're discussing these things, to be sure that we're really discussing the same thing. Maybe that I could identify as a barrier. So really getting the message across.
Okay, cool. So like wrapping up and trying to like finalize with the work, I have like two more questions if there is no more questions from the audience. One is what should like I would say the people, but more for the stakeholders or people who read the report, be focusing on over the next, I don't know, 2 to 5 years, like short middle term.
I think understanding why, although the highest deal activity is in Europe, we don't in here when it comes to the amounts of capital. What are the root causes of that? What can be done about? I mean, this is a topic we've been discussing together, right? When it comes to the different consultations of QuIC with the most recent policy, and it's a topic that I believe QuIC is also trying to push and is being successful at. And we see already, which should be helping, like the 28th regime, right, which was announced by yesterday, I believe. Of course, it's not a done deal yet, but initiatives in this, more integration of it, I think will one day to a situation where it is really easier to invest higher amount into technology companies, not only in quantum, right, but also in
Yeah,
other
in
in
general.
other technologies, so that the capital market is really comparable to what the US can offer.
Yeah. So I have a question in the chat, but first, and thank for the ad. I'm gonna spam a little bit more. So yeah, we have a document, a white paper about the 28th regime, and now that it has been announced, QuIC is planning to like draft a little bit of, I won't say a document, but some words about what happened. And also, as you said, we are working in a white paper towards the quantum market consolidation in Europe. So that will be out in a couple of weeks. But the question that has been asked, like, well, this person joined late. I'm sorry, you will have the recording in YouTube. Maybe you missed this wonderful pitch from Roman that I enjoyed so much. But do you know how Europe's quantum investment compares to that of the US and China? I don't know if you have researched that or the report addresses something.
Um, yeah, I think we've been discussing this all along and covered in the reports. It's more specifically between Europe and US, because in
Yeah.
China, I believe that it is mostly led by public funding, and we don't see like many big equity deals with Chinese companies. So, but yeah, we've apart from that, we've already discussed this topic, and it's covered in the report.
Yeah. So to sum up and like to bring in this to an end, I want to ask you, like, if someone watching this or the recording or in the chat wants to get involved with the report, with the findings or the future reports, or want to like build upon this work, where should they start or contact, or I don't know.
I mean, we're always happy to talk to potential collaborators. So that can definitely be the first step. Reach out to us. I don't know if my contact information is available anywhere, but I mean, it's findable on the web, so
Yeah.
that should be easy enough. And the contacts are also in the report itself. The link to that has been shared. So I mean, from this perspective, I believe that we should be well set up.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we are in LinkedIn Live right now, so I believe that Roman's profiles will be down there. If you are in YouTube, you can ask either looking through the report and find an email or contacting us at QuIC, and we will be so pleased to get a link to Roman. So again, thank you, Roman. Thank you for being here to share the insights and the different findings that you have done through the report, presenting the report. I'm gonna put like the link again. I believe it's also in the chat. But anyways, it will be here forever. And last but not least, I want to share that we are in LinkedIn. Of course, we are seeing this here, but also in YouTube. So please follow, like the video, subscribe to YouTube, and all of these things. Again, thank you, Roman, for being here. It has been a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, David.
Bye.